ASRock has had a huge amount of motherboard failures and 9800 X3D issues specifically over the last several months, so we stopped by. All right, so we tried to stop by ASRock yesterday at the end of the show, unannounced, to ask about the motherboards. They said to come back today. They would not tell us anything, so we're coming back today. I think this is our guy. PM available? Motherboard PM?
Motherboard PM.
I'm Steve. Good to meet you.
1 second. Are you doing like
Good. We are recording. We're not live streaming. Hey,
Hi.
I'm Steve.
Steve.
Good to meet you. Do you have time to talk about what's going on with the motherboards and X3D?
Yes.
Can we film it? Can we talk on camera?
Can we talk first?
We can talk first, as
Yeah.
long as I can put it on record.
Okay, cool.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Lead the way.
Let's invite our
Yeah.
one here.
Hey,
Steve.
good to meet you. I'm Steve. In the time since our last update on the situation, we've seen continual posts from the community about more failures. It really hasn't stopped. ASRock posted an update back in March on the 25th that we found to be unclear, misleading, and of zero value. ASRock's update stated, quote, "A retrieved motherboard was in a system where the CPU showed burn damage. When inspecting this motherboard, we found that the motherboard does not have obvious damage nor burn marks around the VRM area. Measurements of the motherboard are also within spec. After cleaning and removing debris from the socket without further repair, the motherboard can boot up successfully with original onboard BIOS. It also passed long-term stress tests. The release of BIOS 3.20 is not related to the CPU damage issue. All BIOS versions, including earlier iterations, will not cause CPU damage," end quote. In the time between that post and now, ASRock pulled BIOS version 3.20 on several of its pages. While we were at Computex, the company released a new BIOS called 3.25. The downside of releasing a major BIOS like this during a trade show is that we didn't have access to our lab to validate ASRock's claims that 3.25 fixes the problems, seeing as we were already in Taiwan. As for that blog post back in March, we think it was written in an intentionally misleading way. It effectively read like, after the thorough cleaning of the socket, everything was good. And we really don't think it's that simple. More accurately, removing the melted pad pieces from the socket, which was partially caused by the socket in some capacity, that allowed the board to continue functioning. But ASRock had a disconnect between that part of it and the cleaning part of it. If those melted pads were caused by ASRock's BIOS, then that's the core of the issue that's left out here. The bottom line for ASRock is that it's had these failures mounting for months now, and it's had really terrible communication with its customers, like exceptionally bad, basically none at all, except for that blog post and one other post we talked about previously, neither of which were useful. And due to ASRock's inability to sufficiently explain why CPUs are failing on its motherboards at a higher rate than other vendors, there'll be an impact on motherboard purchasing decisions. And there should be, because as a customer, you shouldn't really be buying motherboards from a company that can't communicate with its customers. This causes long-term problems and support issues. So we decided to stop by ASRock's booth on Thursday, the second to last day of Computex, to ask them about the motherboard issues. And this was unannounced. We showed up. I'm going to be honest, they were a little bit panicked. But we did ask if we could talk to somebody about the motherboard issues, and they instantly turned us away. They said, maybe tomorrow. I said, what time tomorrow? They said 9 a.m. One problem with that. Computex is not open at 9 a.m. for the press, only for exhibitors. It opens for us at 10 a.m. And I asked about other times. 9 a.m. was the best time. So we went over to another booth. I asked those exhibitors if I could borrow their exhibitor badges, and they said yes. So we borrowed some exhibitor badges, and we moseyed on in to ASRock's booth at 9 a.m. as requested. We brought you this video with the GN store and 10% off code IDGAF, as in, I don't give a fuck, which we introduced for NVIDIA. You can use this code to grab one of our high-quality, extremely heat-resistant silicone soldering and project mats in red, green, blue, and yellow. Also consider our PC building mod mats, which are now available in our GN15 design with pinout and screw tracking diagrams, or in the Volt B stock for a more affordable price. Our tabletop gaming dice have also been wildly popular, especially for the embedded e-waste inductors and snowflake cap miniatures. These are sharp-edge resin dice with a custom wooden box and trading card included. We're able to provide unique, independent reporting that puts everyone, sometimes including us, in uncomfortable but important on-record conversations on camera because of the voice and financial support you all give us. And being able to get meetings like this is what helps make us unique at the shows. You can get something useful from store.gamersnexus.net while supporting our ability to pursue topics on behalf of consumers. And remember, use code IDGAF, as in, I don't give a fuck, for 10% off on store.gamersnexus.net. Now, let's get into the brief interview. Hey everyone, so I'm joined by Chris Lee from ASRock.
Yes.
And
Hi, Steve.
Hi. We've been talking about the motherboard and the X3D issues online, so this video is going to be very simple. I'm just trying to get as much information as ASRock has to share. I'm sure you all have seen some of the posts on Reddit, especially about motherboard failures. A lot of it relates to X3D. We did some initial research. We didn't come to conclusions yet, so we're at Computex, and I stopped by totally unplanned and said, "Can we talk about motherboards?" So, Chris, what's your role at ASRock?
I am in charge of running the motherboard business at ASRock.
Okay,
Yep.
VP, right?
Yep.
Okay, so VP of motherboard. So, I mean, first question really is just, does ASRock know what's been going on at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, of course, thanks, Steve.
Sure.
You guys come to. I appreciate you guys come to our booth. Let us have a chance to to talk to our customers, users. All right. Well, of course, we realized that there are some cases was reported on the forum about the 9800 X3D issues, and we're aware of that. And what we found is, okay, let's divide into. It's a little bit complex.
Okay.
So let's divide into three parts, right? First one is some cases, but it's a small percentage. It's like user's damage. Some thermal paste, put it on the, we found that some thermal paste on the socket, so it's costly, it's a nobody issue.
Okay.
So, but this is let's say user's case, right?
Yeah, of course, a lot of them are not user
Exactly,
damage.
yeah.
So what are the not user issues?
And second part is we found some cases report looks like my CPU's dying. They sent back the CPU, the motherboards, and we also sent back the CPU to AMD. And after test, a lot of cases the CPU is still working.
Okay.
So it looks like to us, after that we investigate and we found that it's kind of like memory compatibility issues.
Okay.
So we released a BIOS 3.20. I think maybe 1 month ago, 1 or 2 months ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
That can fix this memory compatibility issues.
Okay.
Okay, so after that, some cases also fixed. So
Yeah.
I'm closed, right?
Right.
I mean,
There's still new ones popping up though after
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah.
So
And
what
the-
else is there?
And the last part is we found that the CPU is really defective.
Okay.
Okay, there's no burn mark on the outlook, but the CPU is just not working.
So is that an AMD issue? AMD CPU issue?
No, we're not saying AMD issue. We found that it's related to our BIOS setting. One of our BIOS settings, that's a PBO settings. It's a precision boost drive. And more technically, we adjust some settings. I mean, majorly two settings in that PBO.
Okay.
One is a thermal design current, stands,
TDC. Yeah.
EDC stands for electric design current. We found that our original value of these two parts may be a bit higher.
Okay.
So now with our new BIOS 3.25, we lower the PBO settings with these two values, and we believe it can solve the problem.
What about for people who have failures that don't have PBO on? Like, are there any other settings? So, like, there was some discussion, I think it was Tech Yes City posted, and there was some posts on Reddit, but about an adaptive, like, VSOC. So has ASRock looked into that at all?
No, yes, but we think that VSOC has nothing to do with this problem. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other issues you think that there are, or BIOS settings related to the failures for users who
No,
don't
we believe that so in this BIOS we refine this PBO settings and we believe it can solve the issues.
Okay.
So now these BIOS are already available to download on the website. So if you have the BIOS if you have the motherboards on hand, you can update this BIOS through the BIOS flashback or through the normal BIOS update process. And then we also deploy this new BIOS into our, let's say, factory mass production. So all the boards from the factories, new boards, coming with a new BIOS, should be no issues.
What about boards at retailers already?
Then it's just like I said, it's needs to update the BIOS.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the current recommendation for anyone on an ASRock board for this generation? Are you guys recommending to update to 3.25?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that should already be available, I guess, for all AM5 boards, ASRock boards.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then what about if there's for people who have had failures? What is the warranty commitment from you guys?
Okay. Until today, we found that some CPU really defective, and also AMD covered these things. So just through the normal RMA process, send the CPU back to AMD.
Okay.
Okay. But for the motherboard until today, we didn't find any single one motherboards was failed.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
defective.
Yeah.
Motherboard's still working, so motherboard is good.
Meaning if you change the CPU to a different CPU, the board
It
works?
still works. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
If the user had some failures, like so I've seen some reports of shutdowns, but hasn't completely stopped working yet. Is there any reason people should be worried about like damage to the CPU?
No, I believe
Okay.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the warranty process, so if someone has an issue with an ASRock board and they send it in under warranty, is ASRock paying for the shipping both ways?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. The rollout for the BIOS, so that's already going through mass production. That's for all boards going forward, all new
Yes.
boards.
Yes.
How about the values? So TDC and EDC, do you happen to know what the change was to the values?
Basically, we lower that values,
Yeah.
but it depends on the VRM design on
Okay.
different boards. So each board needs to set different values. So I cannot say,
Sure.
to set this value or yeah.
Do you happen to know any off the top of your head for any one particular board? Like how big of? I'm basically looking for like how big was the change?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I don't have that number in my mind.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the questions people are going to have are just going to be for anyone who's experienced a failure or what they think is a failure, but they don't have PBO on. And it sounds like you guys don't think there's any motherboard issue for that type of situation. Because what you've given is basically a PBO thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I guess memory compatibility was the other claim.
Yeah.
But you don't think there's any other underlying issue?
Yes. Until now, we believe it's
Okay.
these two issues.
What about the pins? So some of the photos I've seen have had pins that have had like lightly scorched, burned pads
Yeah.
after coming out of the ASRock board. So
For that CPU, you mean the CPU with the burn mark, right?
some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more than one.
We have sent that CPU back to the AMD, but we're still waiting for the analyzed result.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a problem that other motherboard vendors are experiencing also?
Sorry,
I know you don't work for them,
yeah,
but I'm
exactly.
just
So,
like-
so I cannot comment on
Okay,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, in terms of like action items or commitments, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. The recommendation from ASRock is to update to 3.25. If you buy a new board, don't assume it has 3.25 on it because it might have been at the retailer already before the change. If there's a defect, then ASRock will pay for shipping both ways, and I guess either swap the board if it's broken or if there's a CPU issue. I mean, are you replacing the CPUs, or you send it back to the customer and tell them to go to AMD, or how does that work if they send both in and the CPU is the problem?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we don't sell the motherboards,
Yeah.
right? So CPU, if they buy from, let's say, any retailers, they just send it back and say CPU is defective.
So then you would send it back to them.
Yeah.
And then they go through AMD, I guess, to warranty the CPU or the retailer.
If that happens. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Is there anything else on this issue? I mean, anything you want to talk about or say to the community? Because I think one of the frustrations for people was that ASRock has been very quiet about all of this. So, I mean, can you just address the customer base? Anything further you want to add to the situation?
No, because just like I said in the beginning, it's like a complex issues. So we need to really to dig out and figure out what's the real problem is. So it might take some time. So I'm really sorry about that. But our R&D team is really working hard on it. So case by case, see what's the memory compatible issues. What is let's say the PBO settings issues. So it takes some time.
Okay. Last one is ASRock doing anything, or have you made any internal changes for the future to try and prevent this from happening? Any process changes that you've made to try and prevent issues like this from happening in the future?
Let's say for this time, we think that maybe there's nothing special process. But what we say is we need to let's say when problem happens, we may need to get more information quickly, and then we can analyze the problem, how to figure out what the solution is. I think that's the thing that we need to improve in the next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can add one for you, I think earlier communication with the customers would be great.
Okay.
Even if it's just like, hey, we're not sure either, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, does that, it helps people know that, okay, they're at least paying attention, and it gets kind of crazy if everyone's panicking about, I'm seeing photos on Reddit every day. It's like the 12-volt high power issue when it was new, right?
Okay.
Like everyone's seeing these failures, they're worried about their board, and just putting something out there like, hey, we're aware of it, we're looking into it. If there's a problem, we're committed to replacing it. You know, like that. That's my feedback.
I agree with you. But okay, like I said, we don't want to give the wrong information to users. I know,
and that's why I think it's okay.
But I totally agree with you. We need to we need to give a user an update or something like that. I think
there's a middle step, right, between guessing and being wrong, and just saying we don't know yet, we're looking into it. Because at least then it's like, okay, they're aware. Right?
Yeah, cool.
So anyway, okay, that's the update then. Thank you for joining me.
Steve. Yeah. Thank you.
And we will see you all next time. All right, so now that we're back in the studio, that's a difficult environment to try and fact check things for something that was updated during the show. And we didn't have access to the motherboards or the test benches to try and validate the claims. So we're back here now. We're not fully convinced that what was discussed will fix the problem. The fix that was mentioned was very focused on PBO. And we know for a fact from talking with users who have had failures and reading posts on Reddit and elsewhere where the failures have been discussed, that PBO is not always on in instances of the failures, which is why I asked in the interview, well, what about everyone else? And the answer was basically, no, that should pretty much fix it. So we're not convinced about that. And we're going to wait at this point another week or two, because now that BIOS is out there, we should start seeing reports coming back pretty quickly if there are continual failures, and then can narrow in further on what those are. Now, this is our first serious encounter with ASRock since it seems like they blacklisted us years and years ago when we produced a VRM and motherboard review that they didn't like. So we haven't worked with ASRock a whole lot. People have changed in that time in terms of the staff at the company, and we'll give them credit for taking the meeting, and realistically, meetings should be like this. Now, we didn't get all the information I wanted to get, and I do think there's more to it, but at least they took the meeting. We only need to go full Acers when there's enough evidence of trying to cover things up and refusing to acknowledge or deal with anything properly. And there's always a chance of that. But for now, ASRock's VP does get credit for going on camera with no notice and taking the responsibility of the meeting, even though he had other people he could have put in front of him there. At this time, we've at least gotten something on record from ASRock. They've spoken about the issue. Now we have something we can validate against. At this stage, what we need is to see what reports emerge from users who are using version 3.25. That's the important part. We're going to keep monitoring it. And one thing we're wondering, so we have a board here I'm about to talk about, but we're wondering if they have some sort of manufacturing or socket debris issue that's related to all this, but not discussed. Now, that's not to say there can't also be a TDC and EDC BIOS issue with PBO. I would fully believe that that is part of the problem, so we're not dismissing that. I think there's more to it, though. And because some of the failures have these sort of cosmetic, weird scorch marks on the pads that can be wiped off and then resolved, which really would only track if it's something else burning, like debris. We do wonder if there's a manufacturing issue. And we also bought another user's motherboard and CPU, and we did some troubleshooting locally for part of our RMA rescue program. You can email rmarescue@gamersnexus.net if you have a failed component you'd like to sell to us. Tannen worked on this while I was in Taiwan. So on a quick inspection, we noticed that the CPU had discolored pads on A7 through A11, B6 through B8, C7 and C8, and BB8. Looking into these using WikiChip, they appear to correspond with display panel power enable, VSS ground, USB-C2 RX2N, or the USB port 2 USB-C receive differential pairs, or DP transmitter lane 0, according to WikiChip, DP0BL on, or the display panel backlight enable, and SLP_S3S5_L, which is a sleep state power plane control signal for the VRM. We were unable to find any noticeable signs of failure on the CPU aside from slightly discolored pins and pads, meaning we didn't see anything that looked like it might have exploded internally like we've seen in the past with the 7800 X3Ds and Dacius. We might send it to an FA lab if these issues continue to pop up. Now what's interesting, again, is that a lot of the failures we've seen so far have not involved PBO, and that wouldn't track with what ASRock is saying. So ASRock says some of it is customer issues. Fully believe that. We've seen one of them. We bought one, it had crushed pins. Another one, ASRock said, is related to memory compatibility. Completely believe that as well. The third one being TDC and EDC and PBO, that's also believable, but we think there's at least one more, which is probably the one that's screwing the most people, and we don't know for fact what that is yet. But looking at this CPU, it gives us some potential pointers where that may be. And then, of course, there's the theory on potential socket debris as well from manufacturing. So at this stage, we don't fully accept that the issue is resolved. ASRock seems to think it is, based on what we've seen online and reports we've seen. There's just not enough evidence for us to think that would be true. It may be partly resolved, but we don't think it fully is. Now, if it's fully resolved, awesome. We'll know basically immediately because everyone will talk about how everything's working now and there won't be any more reports of failure. But in the last few days, we've already seen reports of failure. So we'll continue following this. This is not our primary investigation right now. So we have a lot of things we're working on. We are looking into several, I can't really talk about them yet. The one that's publicly known is the NVIDIA situation. I just spent an extra 2 days in Taiwan talking to people back to back to back about NVIDIA's issues, and I'll leave that there. So this is not our primary. It is on our radar. I have regularly been working with Tannen to continue following the story and researching it. So please email us if you have leads on the ASRock situation. And those leads could include, hey, my motherboard's not working, I have 3.25. You can email tips@gamersnexus.net. If this isn't resolved for you after 3.25, put ASRock in the subject line, please, so we can find it. And we'll do our best to keep following this with everything else we're doing. We're taking a lot right now. So just be advised, this is not the number one for us, but it is important to us. For now, at least ASRock's commented. We'll try and get more. And if you have an actual failure that is not fixable, you can email RMA Rescue. It's a different inbox at gamersnexus.net. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.